Be careful not to curse the very thing that you've prayed and asked God for. So this is a quick story time. So I was talking with a person earlier this week, and they were saying how they didn't like the job and the position that they were in, that they were tired of the field that they were in, and they had been praying and asking God to, remove them from the field. And they were saying like, okay, God, I'm tired of working in this field. I want to do something different. And so not long after that, they were fired from their position. And so something that they were praying for prior to being fired, when they were, walking in this wealth and they had the money that was flowing, something that they were praying for, God gave them, but God didn't give it to them until after they were fired. And so then they began to curse the very thing that God gave them because they were upset and they were frustrated that it didn't happen the way that they thought that it should happen. They didn't think that it was the right time because the circumstances weren't right and the circumstances weren't ideal, even though just a couple months ago they were praying for this very thing that God had blessed them with in this season. And so the person was actually trying to, find a way to get rid of this blessing, to find a way to not receive this blessing. This person was rejecting this blessing because they didn't feel like it was happening in the timing or in the way that it should go, and forgetting that they had prayed just a couple months prior, not only for this blessing, but they also were praying to be relieved and removed from this position that they were in. And so I began to speak to that person. I said, don't curse the very thing that you've been asking God to give you just because it's not packaged in the way that you thought that it should be packaged in. God doesn't work on our time. God does not do things on our timeline. God does not do things the way that we think in our human mind it should be done, because God's ways are not our ways. He knows better than us. And if God does it, it doesn't matter what the situation looks like. It doesn't matter what the scenario is on the outside. God knows exactly what he's doing. He doesn't need our help. He doesn't need our help to make his blessings come to pass. He doesn't need our help to make his will come to pass on the earth. As far as when I say he doesn't need our help, I'm saying he doesn't need us to do it or feel like we have to do it our way, because he's going to do it his way. And so I began to encourage that person and say, don't curse the very thing that you prayed for just because it's not packaged in the way that you thought that it should be packaged in. If God brought it to you, if God brings you to it, he's going to bring you through it. So don't despise it and don't curse it. And I actually had to rebuke them and tell them that they needed to repent and they needed to come out of agreement with what they were thinking and what they were speaking, because they were literally rebuking the very thing that they asked God for, and that's a slap in the face. And so they didn't think of it that way, and they began to say, okay, yeah, I didn't really realize it. It just doesn't seem like it's the right timing. And I said, but God's time is not our time. And so then fast forward to a personal situation with me, I will use myself, because it's so crazy, because God cares about the things that we don't even speak out loud. God cares about the things that we don't even verbalize in prayer. God is just that good of a God, especially when you are faithful, especially when you are obedient, especially when you are a part of his remnant and you have the favor of God over your life and you speak with him and you spend that intimate time and have that intimate relationship with him. He cares about the desires of our heart. And it was just Friday, and it was crazy because I was looking at my check stub and I was like, okay, if I could just get a few more hours a week on my paycheck, then I could get X, Y, and Z. And so, just figuring things out in my head, but it was just a thought. It wasn't a prayer. It was just a thought. And so fast forward to Monday, my supervisor calls me in the office and says, we've got a lot of things going on. There's a lot of changes that are happening. And, I'm going to need you here longer throughout the day. Instead of leaving at this time, I need you to leave at this time. And then he's just like, I remember we talked about this when we first started, when you first got hired, that there was a potential that as things got busier, we would need you more. And so, this is actually a good thing. And he's like trying to sell me on this. And it was crazy, because if my first thought was like, ugh, now I gotta stay here an extra hour and y'all want me to do immediately, and I immediately had to repent. I had to repent immediately, because God revealed to me that I just thought on Friday, how can I get more hours on this check so that I can accomplish this goal? And then on Monday, he had the solution for me. He had the answer for me. He had the answer to the prayer. Thoughts can also be prayer, so don't neglect that. So I had to repent and rebuke myself and say, girl, how dare you curse the very thing that you prayed for? God is answering the prayers in an instant. He's answering the prayers suddenly. Just what you've been asking for, just what you've been speaking, just what you've been saying to encourage everybody else, it applies to you too. God is moving quickly, he's moving swiftly, and he's moving suddenly, and he's moving in mysterious ways. He's doing a new thing. He's not going to do it the same way that he did it last time. He's not going to do it the same way you expected it to be done last season, because behold, he's doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? And so I had to just repent and say, God, I apologize. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I repent for even having any negative or ill thought about what you're doing to bless me, because I didn't even ask for it, and yet you had the answer. God is a God that is moving, and just because it's not happening the way that you think it should happen does not mean that God is not answering prayers. So be mindful of how you receive what God is doing in this season, because it just might be the very answer to the thing that you've been praying. And just because it's not packaged the way that you thought that it should be packaged, remove your will out of the way. Remove the way that you think it should be done out of the way, and begin to receive what God is doing in your life, because he's answering prayer. He's doing it suddenly, and he's doing a new thing. I love y'all. Share this message.